Fresh killer.
What up, tribe? What's going on? It's been a little while since I reviewed a book, but I have a book that is worth your time and definitely worth reviewing, and it is Will Smith with Mark Manson. That's right. It is a very, very, very good book. And it covers his life, obviously, and his meteoric rise in the world of Hollywood, his impact on hip hop when hip hop was still a baby. He was one of the first crossover successes in hip hop. He talks about his family in great detail, particularly his relationship with his kids. And so the excesses, the external perfection, and the internal woe, it is all covered in this book. Now, before I go any further with the review, I do want to say spoilers abound. And so if you want to actually read the book, I suggest you like this first, like this video, and then go read the book and then come back to the video. For all my people who you just want to hear my perspective and you want to rock with it, and for my people who it doesn't matter, you're not tripping, just, okay, I'm here for you. I'm going to give you the book through my lens. So the book is a lot of things. It is part Hollywood success story. It is part a motivational book. It has a lot of components to it, but I want to speak to you from what I think is at the core of the text, and that is Will Smith's relationship to his father and what his father instilled in him and his inability to give that gift to the people that he loves. His problem with making sense of the very tough love that his father showed him. He saw the light and he was able to apply that to have a phenomenal career. But what do you do with that in a world where a lot of people feel like Will Smith's father's approach is outdated? So there is a quote from the text, and it reads, "I've heard many people say that a child's personality is influenced by the meaning of their name. Well, my father gave me my name. He gave me his name, and he gave me my greatest advantage in life, my ability to weather adversity." And that's an excerpt from Will. His relationship with his father is multifaceted because his father was once in the army, and his father looked at everything like a mission, right? You go do your mission, go to the store, give me a box of cigarettes and da 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 da. And he would send him on a mission. And if Will did not fulfill this mission, if he was out goofing off when he was supposed to come home, then his father would, there were serious repercussions for that, like a physical beating for that, right? Because life is about achieving missions, okay? When he was really young, him and his brother devoted all of this time into building a fence. And it's a way to build a fence that people no longer do because it takes a very long time. But his father had this idea of building this fence, and he wanted his boys to do it. And so it was such a long process. But Will ended up saying, okay, it's not about, don't look at the whole task, but just look at it brick by brick. And when he did that, he was able to just come in, put his head down and put in that work, him, his brother, and his father. And at one point, they finally finished it. And that was very impressionable to Will, because he put everything aside and devoted himself into one task actually finished it, right? And so he looked at his life as just like devoting everything that you have to a particular task. And so he thanks his father for things like that, but his father was also physically abusive to his mother, punching her, knocking her down on multiple occasions. And Will said that he felt like a coward because he wanted to protect his mother. And that is something that Will struggles with. And so his father gave him his grind, but his father also gave him all of his insecurities. He said that although his father was an alcoholic and could be verbally abusive and emotionally abusive and physically abusive, but his father also came to all of his movie premieres. And his father was also a very ardent supporter of him. There was a part where his mother, Will's mother, who was very sweet and balanced Will out in a lot of ways. His mother really wanted him to go to MIT. Will was a good student and had done well in the SATs and really wanted Will to go to college. And Will had started this hip hop thing, him and Jazzy Jeff. And so his father kind of smoothed it over with his mother, and they came up with an ultimatum. He said, okay, you have 1 year. I'll give you a gap year after high school. And basically he had to get it cracking as far as music in that gap year. And if you don't get it cracking, you have to go to college. Well, Will got it cracking with, parents just don't understand, ironically enough. And so, and so he was able to do that, but it was his father that was able to kind of negotiate that deal, right? And so Will, he has many successes, and he talked about the movie not the movie. It reads like a movie. I was totally engrossed in it, but there's a lot of humor in the book. So Will does well in hip hop, and then he gets cold. And there's a story where he's trying to get into a club and he gets fronted on by EU, which is the group that sings "Doing the Butt." They're just like, he's not with us, which is hilarious because you look at the song "Do the Butt" versus Independence Day, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, The Pursuit of Happiness, and all of these things, right? And it's just like, wow, it's interesting how things shape up. But so all of that happens. So the money basically from hip hop, his hip hop career dries up, the money dries up, and all of that. And there's another part of the book where he befriends Quincy Jones, and he hears about this pilot for a show that would ultimately become The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And Quincy Jones invites him to a party at his house. All type of A-list celebrities are there and they're kicking it. And Will's chilling, right? He's like, oh my goodness, he's just happy to be there. And Quincy says, all right, y'all, clear out the living room. We're going to have Will read the scene from the pilot. We're going to have him read the script from the pilot. Will's like, whoa. Hold on, homie. I'm here to kick it. I'm not. Quincy Jones takes him to a room. He's just like, brother, this is how it works in Hollywood. The producer of the show is here. The representative from NBC is here to greenlight the show. Everybody that needs to be in here is in that space right now. And I need you to just think about it. But now is the time for you to, do this reading, right? So it's just like you have a choice, but no, you really don't have a choice. And so Will thought about it, and he came out of the room and he performed. And well, we all know Fresh Prince of Bel-Air is a hit, iconic show, right? But it all happened in that room. And then if he would have bowed down to his fear, or perhaps if he wouldn't have had such a demanding father, then that moment would have been too big for him. But his father shaped him in a way to whereas he sucked it up, and he went in there and he performed, and he did his thing. And so the way that the story is told, everything centers on the father. And when Will becomes a father, of course, he tries to impart the same jewels onto his children. but it's a different age, different era, different circumstances. And his kids pushed back. He used the term, they made a mutiny, right? They revolted against him, each in their own separate way. But it calls into question this very masculine way of rearing your children. We use the term toxic masculinity now. Will never uses that term in his book because he credits his success largely with how his father raised him. And when I'm reading the book, part of the reason why I was so just like absorbed into the text was that I don't think that we as a society find a place for that. How does a man love? A man loves is often not tender, it's often brutal to watch. It might make you uncomfortable, and it might make you cry, but this is the language that men speak to one another. And this is the language in which men express themselves. I think we're at a time right now where we are just totally making that as obsolete as writing in cursive. We're saying, well, we don't need to do that anymore. And that's the struggle. That's what makes this book so relevant right now in the year 2022, is because Will, in a very subtle way, is advocating for that, because that is why he became a major box office draw and pretty much succeeded in everything that he did professionally. So he's saying that, no, we need that, this is significant, but he's also critiquing it at the same time. And he himself is a work in progress. His daughter, Willow, y'all remember the joint, I whip my hair back and forth, I whip my hair back and forth. So he talked about what was happening in the home behind that, the time around that, when that song was made. And he says that his daughter liked to sing. His daughter liked to sing in front of people. And he was just like, okay, my daughter likes to sing. We're going to dominate the world. We're going to become #1 on the charts. We're going to put out all this music. Like, she's going to be the best thing that ever happened to music, because that's the way he processes things. He only thinks in terms of, if you're going to get into it, you got to dominate everything and apply yourself to it 100%, just like that wall that he built with his father. But when dealing with his little girl, he realizes that approach, that wasn't the way to go. And so, you know, everyone's different. And so with Willow, she performed a leg of the tour, a leg of the song, like she had, 4 or 5 shows in Europe. And so after that, she says, okay, Dad, I'm done. And he's like, what you mean, you done with the show? Like, yeah, we got a week or 2 off, and then we got to do the United States leg of the tour. She's like, no, Dad, I'm done. and so he says, all right, well, look, we have this deal. We signed with Jay-Z. We have studio time. We made a lot of promises to a lot of people. And we need to carry this out. She said, all right. They go home. This girl cuts all of her hair off. Now, mind you, the song's called I Whip My Hair Back and Forth. And so she cuts all of her hair off, and it's only at that point that Will is like, oh, okay, all right. Like, I get it, right? And so that's the last that, pretty much the song fizzled out. There was no album or any of those things. But I found myself so torn because, like, I totally understood Will. I was just like, well, yeah, she did make a commitment and she should follow through on what she commits herself to, and that's a valuable lesson. I think we're at a time right now where people are told by society and by the media that they don't have to push through things and that you should put your mental health first. mental health is extremely important. But what we have to understand when we see people like Simone Biles, by the way, who was in the Olympics, and she felt like she was she didn't want to compete at the Olympics because some people say it was it was a mental situation, or she didn't feel she no longer wanted to do it for whatever reason, and she stopped during the team performance, right? And the media rallied her defense because of she put her mental health first, and people were saying basically this is what we need to do more. There's an NBA player, his name is Ben Simmons, and he was playing for the Philadelphia 76ers, and he wanted out of his contract, and they were just like, no, you have to go to your contract, you have to fulfill your contract. He wanted to be traded, and he stated by his agent that he was experiencing some mental health issues, and so ultimately, he never played for the 76ers again. He wound up getting traded. And the media largely supports this. And I say, okay, we're supporting mental health. That's one thing, but people have to understand that the way that someone like Will Smith was raised and the way that I was raised for the most part was that you handle your business, right? And so this estranges people who have this kind of ideology, just like you finish what you start no matter what. And so I found myself relating to Will in such an intense way, but at the same time, I was experiencing the revelation that he was experiencing too, that this era is different and we have to adjust or be left behind. And it's really, really, really tough because you also want to advocate for the way that you were raised. And so Will faced this in his relationship to his daughter Willow, and also in a relationship to Jaden, who got into business as well. And I think that it was less pronounced with Jaden, but at one point Jaden wanted to emancipate himself. He wanted to, it's like a legal process, you free yourself from your parents, and Will talked about how much that hurt him. And so the book is about that. It's about him just really trying to him embracing his drive, but also him trying to kind of fall into normalcy and turn it off. And he went through great lengths of trying to turn it off. He went to Trinidad and he was thinking like, okay, I'm coming here to chill. And he saw a child like eating a fruit and jumping in the water, and he couldn't swim. And he was just like, he was trying to get himself like to relax, like this kid was relaxing, and like they were chilling in the island of Trinidad. And it was just a process for Will. It was a process for Will. And I think through that and through the way that the book was rendered, it just makes it so incredible. And there's also other things he talks about, his relationship with his wife. He doesn't get into like all the extramarital, whatever, open relationship type stuff really, but he does really detail the ideology that he has that really complicates the relationship. He really goes into the baggage that he brings to the table. And there's another quote, and it says, "I am a dreamer and a builder. I picture grand visions and then I build the systems to make them real in the world. That is my love language. I want to help the people I love build extraordinary lives for themselves, but it demands that they be willing to grind and sacrifice, and most importantly, they have trust in me. And if they don't, it registers as a complete rejection of my love." And at one point, everyone in the circle, wife, kids, everyone rejected his form of love. And he had to come to understand that a lot of people don't want to be great. Some people just want to be. Some people don't want you to create the world that you have and all these successes that you have and give it to them. Some people don't want that. And so at the core of the book is him trying to make peace of that. And you see him struggling with it. And you also see him struggling with his father throughout the book. And there's a scene at the very end where his father is in a very debilitated state. His father is very weak. His father is living in his last days, and his father is in a wheelchair, and he's above the stairs. And Will has this thought of pushing his father down the stairs to get revenge for the fear that his father made him feel as a kid, and for him to feel victorious and feel like he's the ultimate man. He doesn't do it. And for him, not only to have that thought, but for him to share that thought with us, I thought was incredible. I thought just the honesty of the book, even in that very vile moment, he was like, to be real, this is how I was feeling. He caused so much hurt to me, and I wanted to hurt him. And just to push everything that he taught me in all the ways that it gave me success, but it also made me struggle, I wanted to push it all away. And so the book offers that kind of honesty, and I would recommend the book. Now, there's a few things critiques that I have. I wouldn't be me, I wouldn't be Roger Porter if I didn't offer up some critiques of the book. And those critiques are, he brings up the lives of certain people and then never returns to it. There was a cousin that moved in with him when he was young, and this cousin was like a wayward kid that they had sent to live with Will and Will's father, so Will's father could straighten him out. But there was a mutual respect that the father had with this boy, with this child, with his cousin. And the cousin listened, but he was just like, you better not touch me. And they said it without saying it, right? And so something happened to whereas the cousin was driving the work van that his father had, and some local drug dealer or whatever messed with the car or did something to it. And he knew that it was him, and he basically beat the dude up. He beat the brakes off the dude, right? And so, and then he was just shortly after that was the last time I saw him. I didn't see him until 25 years later. So I don't know if he ended up going to prison. I don't know what happened in 20 plus years. They never returned to it. So it's like, what's going on with that? There's also, he had a homeboy named Reddy Rock that went to high school with him and was part of his group. Reddy Rock was the beatboxer. And if we know through the history of hip hop, beatboxing was just basically phased out, right? And so, Reddy Rock took this as he became less and less of the show. He began to lose his mind, and he began to, there was one scene when he was in the trailer. I'm not in the trailer, but he was in the, they were on tour, he's on the tour bus, and he was playing with a gun, and he just basically was just he was breaking up. And so he was just like, wow, my friend is gone. And then he said that, and obviously got kicked off the tour, and he never returned to it. Situation with Tupac, he said that he was jealous of Tupac and Tupac's relationship with his wife, who they were good friends, right? With his wife, Jada Pinkett Smith. And so he says that while Pac was alive, but then he never talked about how it impacted him when Tupac died. He never talked about the legacy of Pac and how Pac, makes him feel comfortable now. And he never brought it up again. And so there are these things that he never came back to. And also my major critique, my biggest critique of this book is, so a lot of people that have a great story to tell, that doesn't mean that they know how to tell that story through writing. Right? A great storyteller does not make a great writer. A person that's lived an interesting life does not make them a great writer. This book is incredibly well written. And I want to give the person props for writing it. This book, it says with Mark Manson. Now, Mark Manson is the person that wrote The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F. And that book is another book that I like a lot, and it's it is modeled just like that book. The chapters are really easy to get through. They're really short. They're concise. It flows very well. It's clearly a Mark Manson style. And so I want to know, what was the process? Did Will Smith write any of this? Or did he just kind of give some bullet points of what happened and then Mark Manson totally flipped it? So it's just like, I want to give Will Smith credit for writing a book, but the book seems to be written by Mark Manson. I don't know if it's 50-50. I don't know how the thing goes, right? And so I want to call it an autobiography, but it's not really an autobiography. It's a half biography, autobiography type joint. So yeah, I have, there's that. But overall, listen, this is the best book that I've read since Ta-Nehisi Coates wrote Between the World and Me. And that was like in 2015. And so I give this book a solid 9 out of 10. It's a great book. So read that and let me know, what are you reading, right? What are you reading these days? And if you read the book, what do you think about the book? Drop something in the comments. Please also subscribe to the tribe, and peace, tribe.